Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Today, I'm going to be talking a bit about bringing setting aspects into an adventure, i.e., mini settings. Kind of the idea that no adventure is just going to be some linear slog through a series of predetermined encounters or scenes, as some types of campaign design likes to call them. That's not a design track I like to follow. I prefer the idea of having a mini setting. And make no mistake, an adventure, eventually, a published adventure, I like to run sandboxes when I'm running my campaign, so adventures are whatever happens when you're just running sandbox games. But if you're publishing an adventure, you have to think about it in terms of there has to be some linear aspects to it, or at least a pile of potential encounters which can create situations where some of them can follow other ones based on different choices made by the players. So, if you think about it in terms of like a choose your own adventure book, where you're going to get to the end of the book eventually. How you're going to get there is going to be up to you to a certain degree. So there's some agency involved, but I guess some people might call that the illusion of agency. But if you've created an adventure and you've set it up in such a way that it is presented more as a mini setting, whereby you have lots of potential places to go, and if they've chosen an end goal, then there can be a way of going through a lot of these potential encounters, any number of them strung together in any number of different ways, to eventually get to that end goal, whether that end goal is just living to the point where you're powerful enough to control a castle in an area, or if you are looking to wrest control or remove some sort of evil power over an area. These are different ways of looking at the same sort of overarching goals. But these don't necessarily create adventures, right? I mean, if you're looking to publish an adventure and all it is a location, then it's really a source book, right? So it has to include some sort of goals that can be adopted by the player characters, or by the players through their characters early on, so that what follows afterward becomes a useful expression of an adventure, shall we say that? Anyway, kind of an introductory ramble there. We spent a good 5 minutes doing that. I think one of the things I want to do then is bring in this adventure. Okay, so yeah, we can do this. Okay, there we go. So we're looking at bringing aspects of a setting into an adventure for campaign depth. So this was an adventure I published back, I think originally in 2002, 2001, end of 2001. I think I was selling it directly for a while before I put it up on RPG Now, which at the time was the main e-publishing outlet. I had done a number of other things before this, but this was the first big project I kind of put out there. And so this is 18 years, almost 19 years since this has been out. This December will be the 20th anniversary for Creative Mountain Games since I first conceived of it over a Christmas break, and started putting it together back then, way back then. The OGL was new. There were a lot of people discussing how it should best be used, and this is how we put it together. So that came out in 2000. We were doing a couple of things right away, and it's 2020. So yeah, 20 years. How about that? I had this culture class, Trundlefolk, which I revised when I revised this in 2008 for 3.5. I used my own SRD 3.5 revised bundle. I originally had this character clip art, which was included in the 2002 Elmore. How about that? And designated my open content, as well as putting aside any product identity, and added in another copyright notification and about how people could get it printed if they wanted to, and made sure that I mention who holds certain copyrights. So, that being the case, let's pop back over here. Let's go back up to the front. We'll take a quick look. So, Whispering Woodwind is ostensibly an adventure that can take place in and around town of Charleston. It's a decent-sized town. What happens potentially in the adventure is the running away from Charleston by someone who has stolen something and committed arson, and it's up to the adventurers, should they so desire, to take up the cause. Back then it was very popular to put together adventures with 14 potential encounters, and they could be of any certain types. I also added in an entire section in the center, which is a quote-unquote culture, nomadic culture, which lives within civilization that I call the Trundlefolk. They're loosely based on Romani, but they're very loosely based on that. I mean, there's the idea they have these carts that they travel around in, these wagons, right? But they're more of a warrior culture because obviously it's a medieval fantasy campaign setting. So if you're going to have something like that, and you're going to have a nomadic culture that lives within that, there's got to be some warrior aspect to them, or some. They've got to be able to defend themselves because they live between the points of light, between the different towns and civilized locations, but within overall kingdoms, right? Moving around. Anywho, worth looking at. First, Jolson was detailed in another supplement the year before, so this jumps off of that. This breaks down the different types of land usage in and around. Let's say the town of Jelson's really this big, but there's the concept that 90% of a town's population is in and around outside the town and are agriculturalists. At least that's what I adopted as truth for this setting. Be kind when you think of this map, because obviously this is all from, gosh, nearly 20 years ago when Adobe software was still fairly young. I think I picked up InDesign 2 from a bargain bin fairly inexpensively. InDesign 3 was already out. Maybe InDesign 4 even. I would have to look that up. But of course now most people that use it just pay the monthly subscription fee for the cloud-based apps, and that's obviously the easiest way to go. Creative Cloud gives you constant updated support, so you're never worried about whether or not your stuff's going to work, and you can use it on any devices you have. Take it around with you, keep stuff in the cloud that you're working on. So too, if you're a fan of Microsoft 365 and you want to be able to use Word and OneNote, I keep those handy on here, though. Of course, you get Excel and other programs as well. This map obviously was created way back when. This also shows where the encounters could potentially be. We're still not out into the wilderness with these first three. This is along the road south, and then we're getting down toward some other towns, right? Or toward more other civilized areas, because in this campaign world, the idea was that folks could travel sometimes a hard day, but a day or less to get from safety to safety. Towns, villages, smaller places didn't always have stockade fences, but at least they were buildings that were clustered together that would support one another if there was, let's say, some sort of a large animal attack, and there would be patrols or night guards, watches set, so that if anything untoward were to happen, people could be rallied to help defend the little area. So everything in the kingdom of Jaws, which back then was just a county of a larger kingdom, everything within the kingdom of Jaws rests within a day's march, one from the next. So you can always find lodgings because it's a civilized area. You can get outside of that, of course, in the whole setting of Grimwald. I've numbered the encounters, but I've also keyed them down here. So, Belly of the Beast. Talk more about that. Hound Hutch, Farmer Lyle, the Town Watch Outpost, Horse Bear and Cub, Trundle Folk Encampment over there, Bullies at the Bar. A lot of this stuff happens down here. Packed with Parview, Stable Loft, the Old Crone, gets further away from Parview, which is a town, right? Town or Thorpe. And those actually had terminologies back then for what their range of size could be for 3.0, 3.5. They were delineated. I think Thorpe's had to be less than 50 people, probably. Something like that. Beer Barn of Lorthalonville. Ambush, mopping up. Lorthalon, and then settling with Parview and Tardak brings you back to Parview, right? So if we go through some more of this, I won't just read through all of this, but I will say that if you want to pause, I can make this larger so you could read parts of this if you want. Again, I haven't touched this for over a decade. I'm sure there's going to be some editing problems. Most of this was written nearly 20 years ago. And it was really only the stats that were updated from 3.0 to 3.5 back in 2008. So there wasn't a lot of actual rewriting happening on the text itself. I should check my chat. I haven't looked over there for a little while. Anybody actually popping in there? See, there's someone named DJ Fanboy lurking behind the scenes. Hey, don't forget to follow DJ Fanboy. You've got, if you follow the channel, speak up in the chat, you'll be put in for an automatic weekly drawing that we do. This week there's going to be some very cool Thaddeus Moore old school Renaissance patches, which will be available next Monday to some lucky winner from this week, Sunday through Saturday. We just did hand out. I took these dice. Over the last 6 weeks, we've been giving away these dice. I was able to get over to the Gygax Memorial Stone down by the fountain in the Riviera, downtown here in Lake Geneva. Put all the dice out there, put out some 20-siders, put out some extra 6-siders I had from Lake Geneva Games, and took a picture of them, thus blessing those dice, because we all know if they are placed upon the stone and their picture is taken, they obviously roll better. That's just how it's science. So there you go. Anyway, 6 lucky winners from the last 6 weeks have each gotten one of these sets of dice or a claim on it, or won it, and had to take them down to the stone to get them blessed before they get shipped off. One of these already has one of these black 20-siders within it. The other 5 will also get one, so all of those are already spoken for. I'm hanging on to these to do some other thing with them. Maybe I'll use them to roll up a character live and see what that does for folks. We'll close that out. So we've got this going on. This gives us some idea. Fit the width. Okay, I'll do that. That way we can scroll down without. So it gives us a background on a grounded ship that was converted into a tavern, which is now called, or at the beginning of this adventure is called, the Belly of the Beast. But of course, you've got to kill your darlings. So right out of the gate, in the opening time of the setting in relation to this adventure, The belly of the beast is on fire, so it's being burnt to a crisp. This is a summary of the encounters. So we had the map with the listing of the encounters and their locations, and now we have a brief summary of each encounter. The adventure begins here at the belly of the beast. We've talked about that in the background material. Hound Hutch of Farmer Lyle is the next encounter. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's within civilization. There's a farmer. He's got a hutch full of hounds. Let's see. We got Town Outpost, Town Watch Outpost. That's at on the road, leaving and or entering the town. Out on the road, you're out in the wilderness. Horse, bear, and cub. Trundlefolk encampment. Talked a little bit about that. Bullies at the bar down in Parview. That happens. You make a deal with Parview. You have one more potential encounter in Parview if you don't leave right away, if you're staying overnight, or if you're searching around the town. There's an old crone, a quote-unquote witness to what's been going on in the area, who can give some information. Then there's the lumber camp. What was a lumber camp, which is now being that has now been taken over by this villain Lorthalon and his band of bandits, I guess. Okay, and the party then has to go there. They can infiltrate. They can sneak up on reconnaissance, do reconnaissance, figure out something. At some point, they've got to deal with a fair number of tough fighting individuals, including Lorthalon himself. So if they're going to clean up the trouble at this lumber camp and thereby help out Parview, sounds kind of familiar because it's similar to something I'm doing now. Although in this case, it's the town. In the adventure I've been running lately, it's the town that was oppressed and taken over, and the lumber camp is nearby and was left undisturbed because the people that took over the town were enjoying the income that was being generated by the lumber camp. So they did not want to staunch that. Then you go back and deal with Parview after you've helped them out. Something I did in these adventures, I know this isn't necessarily campaign oriented, but it is in kind of a offbeat sort of way. This adjusting the bar thing that I did with the adventure gives you 5 ways, playing by the book being the middle ground on a scale of 1 to 5 of how you could run the adventure. If you just ran it straight up the way it's written and didn't change any stats, make it tougher, make it easier, then you're playing it on the bar is left unadjusted. If you make it super easy, holding their hands, make it at least a little bit easier, allowing some leeway, bumping it up a notch, making it a little bit tougher, or making it super tough, you're dialing it way up. Another thing that I did with NPCs back then was I created something called the CMG Pros system, which gave ratings for NPCs in 5 different areas. And that was 5 areas were politics, religion, others, and self, how they treated others, how they took care of themselves, and economics. So hence the pros system. It was a way of creating keywords, and you also added in 3 keywords that describe the character in some way. This breaks down a little more of how that works. And here's a good example. Let's stop that. Did it again. Here's a good example of how that plays out. This particular character, Tardak, who's in charge of a background description on him. Okay, the Belly Inn and Tavern is the name of that ship that's turned into an inn and tavern, and Belly of the Beast is the name of the encounter. His ratings, scale of 1 to 10. He's big on economics, takes care of himself, is give or take others, not at all religious really, politically, maybe only on a social level, involved with others. 3 adjectives that describe him: commanding, disarming, perceptive. So this is a kind of a short form for ways that you can expand on how you play the character when he's encountered with by player characters. And it's a good campaign tip to create some way of gauging in a general sense how player characters, how NPCs will conduct themselves, particularly with player characters, but just in general. Because if all their being is reactive, if everything that a NPC does is in relation to how player characters act or treat them, if they have no life beyond when they are encountered by player characters, then they might as well be a video game with NPCs just leaning up against a wall waiting for somebody to come talk to them, right? And that's no good. Because what we really want are fleshed out, or at least the sense that these characters are fleshed out and that they have lives beyond the adventure beyond. That's how you create, and that gets us back to bringing aspects of a setting into an adventure for campaign depth. When we're talking about campaign discussion, this is how you create a campaign through NPCs that feels like more than just this two-dimensional, hey, you're in Narnia, go kill the Winter Witch, and everybody you run into is just somebody pointing in a direction for you. Which way to go, which way to go, which way to go, based on what your goal is, not based on what they're doing within a particular world. And I'm not saying Chronicles of Narnia is like that. I'm just using those names so that I have some sort of a way of, instead of saying setting A. Weather, good to add that in. If you want your campaign world to be part of an adventure, then you should look at where they are in your campaign world and determine what sort of potential weather can happen around there, and leave that up in the air. Let that be a random thing that's different with every time the adventure gets run by whoever happens to be running it. All the stats, remember 3.5 stat blocks were pretty huge, but pretty detailed. Good to have all these skills down there. You can roll stuff out if you feel like you want some randomness to how stuff gets played out. You got a lot of text which can be paraphrased, of course, but there's a lot of good information in here. I was always a big fan of including text blocks for those who feel like they need to read them, especially early in the encounters. I mean, stuff that comes up later, not all that important to have big text blocks later on. But while you're getting exposition in, while you're quote-unquote setting the stage, you want to have that information available. So if you have all of that information that needs to be conveyed within the text blocks, that could just be read, but then also paraphrase and give more detail and stuff that wouldn't be revealed within the description, including some point-by-point stuff, which is always important, then you probably got all your bases covered. People can deliver this information in this form. They can deliver it in a third party form, if you will. So any which way they want. You're not locking somebody into something, but you're giving them all the options. Sets up a deal. Here's the deal, that the mechanics potentially of the deal being brokered. And then we talk about terrain. We're going to talk about everything that can be run into. It's good to have a breakdown of what's potential there, how it's described, what's it look like. We can talk about mapping. This is all stuff you want to do to create the stuff. Some of it may seem second nature. Some of it may not seem like it needs to be detailed out in this way when you're putting something together for yourself. But if you're like me, almost every time you run an adventure, later on you think to yourself, oh, there's an aspect. If I'd have dealt with lighting a little more rigorously, it would have made it a lot more interesting in the moment while we were running the game. How'd you farm a Lyle? This is that second adventure. It also discusses how you can adjust the bar. We don't talk about the hand holding in this particular case. Here's a place. They can also purchase dogs, guard dogs if they want. There's 3 of them here. They can be available for sale, right? You can get tracking dogs, riding dogs, ponies. We talk now and put these stats in because it's a little farm. You can get, players can get all sorts of potential mounts here at this particular farmer's place. And once again, there's that CMG Pros system helping you keep the campaign wide and exciting. The big stat block. We move on to the Town Watch Outpost. Krepner is on guard duty there. As the name might imply, he is not necessarily a very good guy. Did we do alignments in here? Let me see. Point, speed, AC, blah, 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 blah. Strength. We did not include alignments in here. Okay. Because we've got this. We don't need alignments, right? If we have we don't really need them. If we're going to flesh out the characters and make them piles of gray areas, then who needs that? Anyway, he's somebody that sees you leave. He's somebody who could be paid off to keep his mouth shut. He's somebody that can betray you. All sorts of options there. Further down, we've got bears over the corpse of a horse. Horse, bear, and cub. No Oxford comma. That's not good. I would not leave an Oxford comma off in this day and age myself. But back then, either didn't care or didn't notice or missed it. So we've got a horse down in the road. There's a couple of bears over it. Well, at first there's only a little one. And then if you move up, you potentially have its mama come out of the woods and mess with you too. So there are ways of making this encounter tougher or easier. Then we get into the Trundlefolk encampment. Now, that's an interesting thing. as I show you, here's the road. These are where they are camped out or where their individual wagons are, right? Um, no. This is off to the side. That's right. Let's see. Peddler's Knoll. So this is called Peddler's Knoll. So this is a high ground area where Trundle folk will camp when they're traveling through. And here, and again, these maps are rudimentary early. They were cheap even back then, right? But they were serviceable. So the different wagons, the different families are associated with different um, aspects of nature. And so they're lined up out here. This is how they have their camp, up on the top of the hill. And then each family has 1, 2, maybe 3 individuals associated with that family. And it discusses what their wagon looks like. These are more like carriages, right? They're all pretty well detailed. I did not do CMG Pros for these. I did not adjust the bar on the encounter. The idea that this is sort of a side trek stuffed in the middle of this is important to note. Talks again about horses, because you can get better horses from the Trundle folk than you could have gotten, or you did get back in town. Some atmosphere in camp. Talks about what camp life is for them. Talks a little bit about what you might be able to do with them. And of course, the whole idea that you can just take them and transplant them into into any setting is one of the things I like. Yes, the Oxford comma is incredibly important to avoid misunderstandings when it comes to all sorts of things. I know it's possibly antiquated. I'm still sometimes have trouble not hitting the space bar twice in between sentences, so there's one that I don't need, that I would and should drop if I had more control over what I do. But some habits die harder than others, and the double space between sentences is one of the ones that I have a lot of trouble losing. We'll see, though. And let me just remind, since I'm looking at the chat over there, remind people that they can jump into the chat stream while they're here, and as long as they are also a follower, they will be added to the current week's list of individuals that can win the next week's drawing prize giveaway. It's really a giveaway. There's no purchase necessary, and it's not really a promo prize. In this case, I guess it is this week, right? Because Thaddeus Moore has donated. I bought a set, and he donated a set of his patches, his old school patches, the OSR patches, and he sent those off to me. I've got 2 sets, so this week we'll do that. For week 7, his potential giveaway is three of those patches, and then week 8, I think we're going to mix it up with something else. I've got, when I was collecting my various posters that I put up on the wall, I wound up with some extra Hildebrandt posters. So I'll probably use those for a prize. I've got some other things laying around that I've got duplicates of or extras of. In some cases, books, some old school stuff, some new school stuff. Anyway, I'm going to dig through. I've got to put together like a prize box where I just have a bunch of stuff to give away so that I have it at the ready for each week, and then I can kind of make a list of stuff that's upcoming so people can see it. We are. Let's have a quick look at the timing here. Excuse me for cutting the mic off. I had to get a drink of water there and give a little cough. We're about 42 minutes in. Um, let's do this then. We are approximately a little beyond the halfway point in the adventure, because once you get through that Trundlefolk section and that's in the middle, um, when you get to the Trundlefoot section, if it didn't exist as part of this, you'd be about halfway through the adventure as a whole. So we're going to leave this now. We've discussed it. We've looked it over. Do a quick back and forth. You could pause that here and there and have a look at it. But again, this adventure was written for 3.5. That doesn't mean it wouldn't be easy to add it into any setting in any system. As long as it's medieval fantasy, obviously this is not something you'd want to use for a sci-fi campaign. I want to also look real quick at this bizarre map. Look at the teeth. Bizarre map that Jonathan L. Bingham made and has thrown in my face as a sort of a schoolyard challenge. Do something with this. Well, fair enough that he opened up his setting. He has a sort of a shared setting idea that he put together, and I said, well, if I had more time, I could do something. And I said, but show me a map, and if I get some ideas, I said, make it something offbeat, nothing too regular. And he showed me this. In its original form, it was somewhat different. I've changed it a bit since then. Let's see if I can bring up. Here we go. Okay. So here was the original map he showed me. And it's all well and good. Obviously, there's a lot of, this is hand drawn on graph paper and then scanned, and then some numbering, lettering has been added in. And that's all well and good, just to get you some ideas. But there's no real color to it there. This is all little. So, this was an original concept piece that he had shared with somebody else that he was doing some work for. And they said, nah, not quite what we're looking for, but if you could do something like this, and they made some suggestions, and he went a whole different direction for them. And so he had this laying around, and he said, yeah, here, check this out. So I took it, and I've been coming up with some concepts for it, and this will be one of those things that you can drop into the bottom of any deep underworld cavern. And there'll be more on this as we come a little closer. I also wanted to point out the cover for the OS zine, which is in the works. It's the first issue of a of an old school medieval fantasy games periodical. Ostensibly, these will be $3 a piece, although I'm thinking this first one will probably be a giveaway. Get people, see if they like it, get some feedback on it, make sure it gets out widely as possible. Where are we at? Let's look at the schedule. So, if you're a fan, if you've watched the show before, if you enjoy watching the show, then by all means, stop in each day, 9:30 a.m. if you care to. Wednesday is Grimwald and campaign discussion. Crafting and painting tomorrow. I finally got that light after last week's, so we'll see how that works out for us tomorrow. Friday's building virtual tabletop adventures, so it's adventure building with an eye toward using them on virtual tabletops. We're partway into building a tower adventure based off of a Dyson Logos map, which I liked quite a bit. Let's see where we at. Here we go. We'll bring this up real quick. So this was the map we used. We took this map and we put it into Roll20 after busting it up and adjusting, making some adjustments to it. You'll see how that was finished up. We did the first couple of layers, first couple of levels, pages last week, and then after the show was over, I finished out fixing up a couple of them. I'll show you how that turned out, and then we'll populate it this Friday. So join us for that. Saturday, of course, we do a running review with the DM perspective of a short cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon. We've been doing the Dungeons & Dragons animated series. We're through 7 episodes. We're going to go through 8 and 9 because they're all on disc 1 of 3. It's 27 total episodes. But then we're going to take a break after 9, and we're going to switch it up and look at the Conan the Adventurer animated series. And I've got the first season of that. We'll play with that for a while. Again, DM perspective. What can we steal for our games? How does this inspire us? What will this do for us? It's always good to have a little fodder, and sometimes it can be frivolous cartoon fodder. It doesn't. You don't have to read the Silmarillion every time you're looking for inspiration. Rules retrospective on Sunday. We've been going over David M. Prada's first edition AD&D initiative and combat flowchart document describing how that works and best ways to use it, best practices, right? Making sure it's clear, making sure it's actually being used as presented. Let's see if I can find that. Is this the one? Nah, that was the one from Skidoo. That's a little less. That's more of a chart, or rather a thing. Here's what I'm talking about. So we've gone through Surprise in the rules retrospective. We're on to step 2, determining distance, and we'll pick it up from there on Sunday. Monday, weekly news and giveaway. Tuesday, cartography and world building, as you know. Today was the campaign discussion. I thank you very much for popping in. If you're checking this out on YouTube, please do subscribe and give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you feel like it. Your call. Doesn't matter. It's all good feedback. And if you're checking this out on the live stream on Twitch, be sure to follow. And even if it's just to say hello, post in the chat stream, because that's how you get in for the giveaway. It's being a follower on Twitch and posting during a live stream. Just any old thing. You don't have to, you know, write a full gaming dissertation every time you post. Sometimes you can just say hi, and that's all good. Don't forget, later this month, Count of Champions, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, unusually, rather than Friday, Saturday, Sunday for a 3-day convention. This one goes Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, May 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I'll be running a board game on Sunday, but on Saturday and on Monday, I'll be doing sort of mirrored games. First level, 3 hours each one. I'll take some time out for dinner. First level, third level, fifth level, all first edition games. These will be similar in that I will probably use a lot of the same elements that I used in the games from Saturday, but I'll be using them in different ways. If you wanted to play in the Saturday one, but also in the Monday one, you will not just be rehashing the same game. I will be providing pre-generated characters from those levels, so come play some first edition. Sign up for the Count of Champions. Help them out. We probably won't be using Discord. So far I've been using, or more lately, I've been using Roll20 with just its native video and voice chats, and they work just fine. So I am curtailing my Discord use while using Roll20. Doesn't mean I don't like Discord. It's good for lots of things. But if I don't need it for Roll20, why add more technology in that can fail while you're trying to run a game? It's good backup. Anywho, that covers everything that we need to cover for today with all the closing information. Join us again next week. I can look at some other campaign things we can go back over, or we can go over the closing action in the Whispering Woodwind adventure and discuss how it can fit more tightly in a campaign if it's and that gives you a general idea of how you can take any adventure and put it into your own campaign, and we can discuss that at some length. I want to thank everybody again. YouTube, please subscribe, plus thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you want to do, and then follow us on Twitch and make sure to speak up in the channel. And have an excellent day. Bye-bye.